Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the ones and twos. By the name Elzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all in 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds? My name is Bob, and welcome to yet another mini-cast in which the Straight Chillin' crew brings you a bite-sized version of the show you already know and love. Sorry, it's been a while since we put one of these out, but I feel like I had to comment at least briefly on 3 from Hell, which is the latest effort by good Sir Rob Zombie. If you listen to the show at all, you probably know by now that none of us are huge fans of Rob Zombie's movies. Lords of Salem is probably my favorite of them, including 3 from Hell in that. I think he's an interesting character. I like his music much more than his films, and he seems like just generally a very cool guy. I just can't get behind his movies too much. So I'm gonna start this out like I usually do on these mini casts. I'm gonna keep it spoiler free in case you haven't seen it yet. It's a new movie, and then I'll drop the spoiler warning in just a couple minutes and get into the rest of the movie. So if you've seen House of a Thousand Corpses, which came out 2003, or The Devil's Rejects 2005, this is the 3rd installment in that franchise, the Firefly family. So 3 from Hell starts off pretty much immediately where The Devil's Rejects leaves off. If you remember the climax of The Devil's Rejects, it has the Firefly family just basically getting lit up by the police. So you've got a baby, Otis, and Captain Spaulding all in a car. Police shoot them up. They are obviously dead. I mean, they get shot hundreds of times, probably. I mean, there's no way that they could not have died. So this movie opens up, and it turns out they did not die somehow, some way. They went to the hospital. I guess they dug out all the bullets, and they just got better somehow. So that's where this movie starts. Just in general, it's got that same kind of Rob Zombie aesthetic and dialogue. This movie was written by Rob Zombie, as were the rest of his films. So if you've seen his other work, you kind of know what you're getting into already. So you just kind of get more of the same. There's really kind of one of my biggest problems with Rob Zombie is that he doesn't ever seem to grow or progress as a filmmaker. It's just like the same regurgitated low-hanging fruit almost, especially in regards to his dialogue. These characters we've seen for 3 movies now, and they still feel just kind of like rough sketches of what they ought to be. They're not interesting to me, really. Unfortunately, Sid Haig, who played Captain Spaulding, was supposed to be a major role in this movie. He fell ill when they started shooting, and if you pay attention to the news at all, he recently passed away, which all that is the reason why Richard Brake comes in and plays a major role in this movie as the character Winslow Foxworth Coltrane, a.k.a. Foxy, a.k.a. Midnight Wolfman. He's got a lot of fucking names. So he is allegedly the half-brother of Baby and Otis. So those 3 characters are sort of taking you throughout this story. They are the quote, 3 from Hell, apparently. So I think this movie definitely suffers from not having the character of Captain Spaulding in it. He was always kind of my favorite character of the 3 from the previous movies. It's kind of a bummer that he's not here, and it's super sad that we no longer have him with us. We don't get to see him act in anything else. So pour one out for Sid Haig and remember him fondly. I will say everything that I've seen Richard Brake in previously. He's usually fantastic. In this movie, he's just sort of not interesting like the rest of the characters in this movie. If you've seen 31, he is the only good thing in 31. Everything else in that movie is pretty rough. But I don't know. His magic couldn't even save the dialogue in this movie. Yeah, that's kind of all I want to get into, I guess, without spoiling the movie. It seems tonally confusing, which I'll get into a little bit more. It's just kind of the same random acts of violence and murder. It's not particularly engaging or funny or even really scary or shocking, which I feel like it's trying to be. It just kind of, you've got this weird knockoff Manson family thing that's happening again, and it's just not engaging really in any way, which is unfortunate. But anyway, I will I don't know that I'd really recommend this movie. Again, if you're like a Rob Zombie completist, or if you're just you have morbid curiosity like I do. I'm always rooting for Rob Zombie. I want him to make a great film. I feel like he can. I feel like he has it in him. He just hasn't been able to do it yet, and I think a lot of it has to do with people not wanting to help him finance things outside of the horror genre, which maybe he could make a great, I don't know, drama or comedy or thriller sci-fi movie. Who knows? As long as he didn't write it, for the love of everything holy, as long as he didn't write the dialogue, he might be able to make a great movie. I'm always kind of in his corner rooting for him, but this movie kind of let me down like many of his other movies have. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5. I really don't recommend it. But do what you will. Don't let me stop you from watching this. If you were excited about it, by all means, watch it and form your own opinions, please. So I'm going to drop that spoiler warning, and then I will get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right. There's really not a ton to spoil in this movie. So like I mentioned, they don't die. The way they handle Captain Spaulding sort of no longer being in this franchise is for some reason he survives the shootout, and then they just execute him by lethal injection later in the movie, but they don't execute the other two for unexplained reasons. It's not written well at all. I don't know. They kill Captain Spaulding, but not the other two. Baby, the character of Baby, played by Sherry Moon Zombie, she goes crazy, and she gets put in a psych ward. She, I don't know, she's tormenting the nurses and whatnot. She says crazy things that are supposed to be intriguing, but they're not really at all. Otis is in jail. He breaks himself out. He's they let him out of the prison to go, dig ditches and burn witches and whatnot. With Danny Trejo's character, who is Rondo, who was also in Devil's Rejects. So they're digging ditches with other prisoners, and somehow or another, Otis gets a gun away from a guard, just starts killing everybody. He eventually kills Danny Trejo's character Rondo, and he meets up with his half brother, Midnight Wolfman. And they start killing people. They take the prison warden hostage, and they get him to go bust Baby out. So the three of them get back together. And then they had been holding the warden's family hostage. Once Baby gets busted out, they just kill his whole family. And that right there is basically the first hour of the movie, just these characters getting back together. It literally takes like an hour of the movie. None of it is particularly interesting. They should have done that in the first 15 minutes, because it feels like this movie actually starts roughly at the hour mark, and it's about an hour and 50-minute movie. So the plot actually starts an hour in, and we've got the, quote, three from hell finally back together, and they're like, oh, what do we do now? And Baby kills somebody who's wearing a sombrero. He's on his way to a Halloween party or something, and she just goes, I don't know, let's go to Mexico, I guess, because she saw somebody wearing a sombrero. So they're just like, fuck it, let's go to Mexico. So that's what they do. Again, poorly written. uninteresting. They just go to Mexico for fucking no reason, I guess. They're not even like, we better flee the cops and go to Mexico. They're just like, I don't know, fuck it, let's go to Mexico. So they do that, and once they get there, there seems to be some sort of like stylistic change as far as the aesthetic of the movie, because like up until this point, it seems like Rob Zombie's really going for that like grindhousey aesthetic where like there's digital grain imposed on the movie. It's kind of dark, like earth tone kind of vibe, and it's got these bizarre cuts where like you'll have a frame slide over the top of another one, or it'll be like a weird freeze frame. It's the transitional choices are just kind of retro intentionally. It's like he's going for a certain vibe. And then as soon as they get to Mexico, like all of that is abandoned, and it just kind of looks like a normal movie. It looks like a better shot movie. The colors are more vibrant. It's more engaging. There's some decent imagery because it's the Day of the Dead is happening. So you've got these people wearing, the face paint, and they've got skeletons hanging up everywhere. And it's just all of a sudden, like I said, the movie starts here. Okay, now we have a movie. So plot-wise, not much happens. They go stay at this hotel, and the owner of the hotel recognizes the three of them, and he calls his buddy Aquarius, who is Danny Trejo character's son, and says, hey, these people that are on the run who killed your father they just happen to be staying at my hotel. You need to come over here and take care of them. So Aquarius and his gang of luchador mask wearing dudes come over, and they're gonna murder the three from hell. So they're all big and buff, wearing suits, luchador masks. They've got their machine guns and machetes and whatnot. So they start shooting the place up. There's a big shootout. A lot of people die. The luchadors, they get a hold of Otis and Winslow, and they hold him hostage, Baby and Winslow. They hold him hostage, and they finally get Otis to come out of the building. And of course, the three from hell just kill them all, and Aquarius is the only one left alive, and they put him in a coffin, pour gasoline over him, and light him on fire. And then they just kind of walk off into the sunset, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. All three of them survive again, and it's fairly anticlimactic. And like I said, the decisions that are made by these characters are just kind of random and uninteresting. We don't learn anything more about the characters. I guess Baby, she can shoot a bow and arrow really well and throw a knife very accurately. Yeah, I don't know. Not a whole lot going on plot-wise. That's pretty much the movie. The Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score right now is sitting at a 50% with 24 critics having weighed in on that. The users score is at a 71% with 389 users weighing in. What about Cooters? Cooter of the week. I guess Otis would probably get my vote for Cooter in this movie. Pretty much all of their attire is wild and bonkers. But Otis is kind of the only manipulative one. And he has a bit of a inflated opinion of himself. He's kind of self-important. The other characters, they're not even well written enough to rank on most of these points. There's not a whole lot of sexual deviancy. I mean, they do. They walk into a brothel, and they have some exchanges, some business exchanges while they're there, but it's nothing like crazy. It's just whatever. So yeah. I guess Otis is going to get my vote for Cooter on this one. Like I said, kind of just a stock Rob Zombie movie. Probably whatever you think it is exactly what it is. You're not going to be surprised by much of anything. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say on this one. 3 from Hell. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll probably get another 1 or 2 of these in before the month is over, because there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. And until next time, as always, everybody, please keep chilling.